All right, I think we can get started. Let me just start by introducing myself, and then I am the Associate Director of the Study Abroad Office, and so I primarily advise for our programs in Europe and Central and South America. And then we have my colleagues who aren't here today. They advise for other regions and continents of the world. We have about 200 programs or 200 locations and 200 programs in 87 locations. So really your opportunities are endless of where you would study abroad. Another role I take on along with the Executive Director of Study Abroad is advising in terms of scholarships and funding opportunities. And within that role, we actually do one-on-one advising for any scholarship opportunity you might pursue in relation to study abroad.
Right, and I'll quickly introduce myself. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is Kyle Rausch, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Executive Director of the Study Abroad Office here at UIC. My first time studying abroad was in high school, actually, where I went to a small island off the west coast of France, and it changed my life, to use a cliche. I then went on to college to major in French and International Affairs and completed 2 more study abroad programs in France, as well as an internship at the British Parliament in London. And so, as you can likely tell, I'm really biased and believe study abroad holds great transformational power for both your professional, your personal, and your academic facets of your career while you're here at UIC. However, we understand that funding usually is the #1 obstacle for students as they're considering studying abroad. As you heard, I participated in multiple programs, and I can assure you my family was not wealthy enough to support me in all of those, so I absolutely had to use the resources that we're going to talk about with you today, including scholarships, to make that happen. And so we're here to say that if you even have an iota of interest in studying abroad, don't let funding deter you. You can make this a reality, and we're going to talk to you a little bit today about how. So here is an overview of the topics we're going to cover. So we're going to talk about some myths. We'll dive a little bit into federal financial aid. We're going to spend most of our time talking about the many exciting scholarships that are out there for study abroad, as well as some tips for how you can craft an effective essay for scholarships. If there's time, we hope to touch on community-based funding, and then we'll end with some testimonials and highlight some upcoming events for you to stay engaged. And of course, take your questions. While we're chatting, we'll both do our best to monitor the chat, so don't be shy. If you have a question, go ahead and pop something in there. We'll try and answer it. Otherwise, we'll wait to the end to circle back. Okay, so I always like to start off by addressing what I think is a common myth that many students unfortunately have about studying abroad, and that is that they think studying abroad costs more than it does to study for a semester at UIC. And Marley, if you click one time, you'll see my outdated PowerPoint animation fly in. That's false. So when I first started here earlier this summer, one of the first projects I wanted to do was to look at the data and look at our program fees and see how they stack up compared to what we term the total cost of attendance for a semester at UIC. And so the chart that you see on this slide basically shows you how the average cost of some of our study abroad programs relates to the cost of attendance for both in-state and out-of-state students. So if you look at that second blue bar with the UIC circle in it, that's showing you what the cost for in-state students is to study for a semester at UIC. To the left and right, you see we have programs that are either cheaper, believe it or not, than studying here for a semester, or just slightly more expensive. Similarly, the fourth bar you see on the graph with the UIC circle, that represents out-of-state students, and same story there. We have programs that fall under what it costs for out-of-state students and programs that are just about the same cost. So even before we get to talking about scholarships and financial aid, studying abroad can be relatively the same cost as what it costs for you to attend UIC. And I think that's great news that a lot of students just aren't aware about. So before we dive into some of the specifics, I think there are some good overall considerations to keep in mind. First, a lot of students will ask us, well, how much does it cost to study abroad? And that's such a difficult question to answer because you have to keep in mind things such as the location of the program and how long you're going abroad. Oftentimes we find programs in popular destinations such as Western Europe are a little bit more expensive than maybe programs in Central or South America, for example. And obviously, if you're going abroad for 7 to 10 days, it's going to usually cost cheaper than it is for a whole semester abroad. The next thing to keep in mind is remember that we have different kinds of programs here at UIC. And if you haven't attended a first step session yet, we have a link to a video on our website that we really recommend you review because that will detail each of the different types of programs we offer. But in short, on an exchange program, students pay their normal UIC tuition. So it's a pretty easy way for you to know what you would pay to study abroad. On our partner and faculty directed programs, you're going to pay a program fee though, and usually this will include your tuition as well. And then lastly, if you are a student who benefits from the GI Bill, if you're a military veteran, you might be able to also use your veteran tuition waiver to help pay for some study abroad cost. And this goes for almost any funding resource that you might have. You might have a specialized scholarship. You might have the actual tuition waiver that staff benefit from. By checking in with our office, we can let you know which of these awards might be applicable to which types of programs. Next, study abroad favors diversity in many forms. So I know we talk a lot with diversity about racial and ethnic diversity, and yes, this applies. We want to see our diverse students studying abroad, but there's other factors to consider. Men are actually hugely diverse in study abroad because females study abroad at a rate of about 60% more than men do. Certain academic disciplines are also considered diverse in study abroad. Things such as STEM fields, so science, technology, engineering, math, aren't as well represented in study abroad, so there are more opportunities and resources to help support certain disciplines. Students who are the first in their families to go to college also are diverse in study abroad, so there are a lot of good resources, and the list goes on and on. So a lot of what I think you'll hear today is really encouraging you to start thinking about your own personal identities and how studying abroad might be a key factor in helping you explore those. And that's really the key to a successful scholarship application for study abroad, is finding a way to weave that story together in a way that's meaningful to scholarship committees. And lastly, this is going to go for anything you hear from our office. Planning early is key. So there are many deadlines that are earlier than you expect. For instance, now is actually a pretty key time for students interested in next summer to be looking at our website and looking at scholarship resources to make sure you're hitting those deadlines. So even if you are a freshman or maybe even a sophomore and you're thinking you don't want to study abroad till your junior or senior year, it's never too early to start researching these resources. And we're here to help you do that.
All right, so all of you that are here are doing exactly what Kyle mentioned. You are planning early for study abroad. So even if you want to go in the future, you can start taking some of the steps now so that when it is time to go abroad, you don't have to go through all of them all at once. So the first is to file your FAFSA. Some of you may already have filed your FAFSA, but just make sure that that is in place because sometimes the cost of attendance for study abroad might be more or less, and your FAFSA will adjust for the overall cost of attendance that you will have when you're abroad. So even if you think you might not receive much aid, definitely file for it because you never know what the situation is that year. We work really closely with the Office of Financial Aid. I'm going to mention one of the advisors, Hua Kao. Hua Kao, she is our point person who works with students who are planning to study abroad to help package their financial aid in order to account for the adjusted cost of attendance abroad. So definitely know that you're supported and that they will talk through how your package might be adjusted. And you'll meet with them after you meet with our office and select your program, but I just wanted to make sure you knew that that support is in place already for you. One thing to note, in addition to some of the other distinguishing factors that Kyle mentioned, is that if you receive a Pell Grant or any other special grants, and we'll talk about a couple of those later, please let us know. We are able as advisors to see your financial information, so we will point out if you do receive a Pell Grant as well in our advising appointments. But if you do, a Pell Grant is has a number of scholarships that are specifically geared towards supporting students who qualify for a Pell Grant. So there is a lot of financial aid as well as scholarships associated with the Pell Grant. your Pell Grant will travel with you abroad. So the money you receive from that particular grant will be applied to your study abroad program. Along those lines, it's important to consider the differences between financial aid for both a semester program versus a summer program. So in general, financial aid travels with the student abroad for semester programs. So any of the scholarships, institutional aid, federal aid, all of that will travel with you abroad in the semester. So if you receive money to attend UIC, that money is meant to be used as well if you're interested to study abroad as well. So it could be applied to that. The way it will work is that you would pay directly to the program, and then the financial aid would still be deposited into your account for which you could use to apply towards study abroad. However, there is one distinction. If you receive a tuition waiver, such as the veteran tuition waiver or the honors college tuition waiver, those will not travel with you in the semester. If you receive one of those, let us know. It doesn't mean you can't study abroad. It just means that there's different program models that will be a better fit for the type of financial aid that you receive. The summer programs are a little bit shorter in length than semester programs. They vary anywhere from 3 weeks to 8 weeks. And because they're shorter than a semester program, they tend to be a little bit less expensive. There's still great immersion learning opportunities if a short-term program is what you're looking for. However, because they're shorter, they're more affordable. The other distinction is that your financial aid, not all of your financial aid will travel with you in the summer. The only thing that will travel with you in the summer would be federal aid. So even more of a push to complete your FAFSA. And then also the Pell Grant, which is a scholarship under the federal financial aid. So those are the two scholarships that go in the summer. Other than that, none of the other scholarships will travel with you. So it's important to consider your financial aid and whether it's more important. It's easier for you to study abroad in the semester program versus summer program, depending on your financial aid background. Don't feel like you need to evaluate this all on your own. We're here to support you with that, and so is the Office of Financial Aid. And we would talk through this with you on an individual basis as you're considering different program models and locations. Remember minimum credit enrollment requirements. So you do need to meet a certain number of hours while abroad, but those align with the credit hours here at UIC. So you need to be a full-time student in order to qualify for federal financial aid or financial aid in general. The next is to plan a budget with your study abroad advisor to understand where and how to budget abroad. So this is going to be more thinking through your personal expenses, thinking through any possible costs that you might incur as a result of this study abroad experience. And it can help you understand where your money is going and the benefit and value that will have in the long term to you. So we would talk through that with you once you've selected a program pre-departure. I mentioned that the tuition waivers and then a couple of other special financial aid scholarships and grants that will travel with you. So the tuition waivers don't, but these, if you receive any of these awards through UIC, those will travel with you. The President's Award Program, the Honors College Scholarships, Business Scholars Awards, the Isidore and Sadie Doran Scholarship. So those, if you see those on your financial aid, know that those travel with you, but this is not a comprehensive list as there is a number of other financial aid that will travel with you. All right, so now what we're all here for is to learn about how we can get scholarships, how we can supplement the cost of attendance while abroad. So it's broken down into a couple of different areas. I'm going to talk through what those are. So as you're looking through scholarship funding options, you'll understand sort of how those work. All scholarships that you'll receive through the UIC Study Abroad scholarships. These are going to be ones that are offered through our department, through a department here at UIC, our unit, the Study Abroad office, as well as different colleges as well. So there's one in LAS, there's a couple in our office, there's some in the German department. So it really varies, and each one has a different distinction and question that you might need to write or speak to. The academic partner scholarships, Study Abroad partners with a number of international organizations across the world, and each one of those have either an agreement with us to support UIC students, or they have additional funding opportunities just directly through their partner organization. So the first I want to talk to you about is automatic grants. These are automatic discounts, for lack of a better word, to the program that you're looking at. So when you go on the websites of our different partners and you see a number, do not panic. Do not start spinning your wheels. How am I going to pay for this? Because that number isn't necessarily the actual cost of the program when you break it down. But no, we will talk through that with you as well on an individual basis. There are these things called automatic grants, and a number of our partners have them. So this is anywhere from an automatic discount of $1,000 to $3,000. And it's an automatic discount. You don't need to apply to an additional scholarship. Just by going on the program, they would take that off your overall cost. The next are UIC partner scholarships. We have relationships with all of our partners, and they value UIC's diversity, merit, and general student body, and they want them to be a part of the diversity and the program abroad. So we have special agreements to support UIC students because they recognize that we're a public institution and they want the cost of attendance abroad to be pretty similar to the cost of attendance here. So those you would apply for through our office, and they're awarded, your applicant pool is just UIC students who are going on that particular program. So it isn't a large applicant pool. So I encourage you to definitely apply for these. I will say we've had less applicants than we'd like in the past, and sometimes we actually have to give back money. So please do not let this opportunity go unused. We want that to go to UIC students. The last one is partner scholarships. These are scholarships that are run independently by each of these partner study abroad programs we work with. So you would have to do a separate application via their channels to be considered for those, but it's an added layer of scholarship opportunities. One thing to know is that some of them do it, give scholarships just for being a Pell recipient. Some of them are travel grants to help offset the cost of traveling to your desired location. So those are three options. The next one are national scholarships, and I'm going to get into that in a little bit. And those are prestigious scholarships, but UIC students traditionally and are consistently get them every semester and every term. So we have anywhere from 3 to 10 students who receive that each term. So please do not count yourself out because you think it's a larger applicant pool and it's harder chances. It isn't necessarily a harder chance because they do value UIC's diversity, public school institution, and the general goals that UIC students are pursuing in their abroad choices. And the last are additional external scholarships. We have a number of students who are real go-getters and have done enough Google searches, looked through all the databases that we have posted on our website to find any sort of funding available. You'd be surprised how much the higher education community, as well as the larger US community, does support having these type of international experiences embedded in a college degree. So don't think that any scholarship is not worth applying to because you never know until you apply. So I'm going to do a rundown. Actually, I'm going to stop for a moment and I'm going to show you where you can find all this information on our website. We are redoing our website right now. So this is not live, but hopefully by the time you guys are back from Thanksgiving break, this will be available for you to search. So if you the Sir Scholarship page, we have some quotes and testimonials. The link to our automatic grants is here. And then we have it divided by section. So UIC Study Abroad scholarships, academic partner scholarships, national scholarships, and then any additional scholarships that I have personally come across or I know a UIC student has used in the past will be listed here. This is not comprehensive. I encourage you to do your own searching as well. And then when you're ready to talk to us, let's find funding together. Schedule an appointment, an advising appointment. We can talk through the specifics of your program and your financial situation. All right. So I mentioned some of the office scholarships. I just have this slide up here and the departmental scholarships so that you can see what even exists that you can apply towards study abroad. Here's some more. We actually have as well UIC faculty directed programs. I know I mentioned our partners earlier on in this presentation, but we actually have study abroad programs that are run through the study abroad office in with a relationship with a faculty member here at UIC. So you'll be studying abroad in a cohort with other UIC students and taking a course taught by a UIC faculty, but learning abroad. So you're going to have guest speakers and site visits from local practitioners and local faculty there, as well as actually getting to physically see what you would normally be talking about in your UIC course here. So it's a great way to supplement the curriculum that the strong curriculum you already have here at UIC. So these are a couple of ones that are specific to our UIC faculty directed programs as well. All of our UIC based scholarships are going to be through UIC Snap. So if your first year or your second year, you might not be familiar with Snap quite yet. UIC Snap is the scholarship and awards program database for the entire university. This doesn't mean that every opportunity is in here, but it is probably the most comprehensive location you can look to seek out scholarships. So all of our UIC SAO ones, so that means the partner ones that we work with abroad, our faculty directed programs, as well as the ones like the Nina Shepherd, the Stanley Eikenberry are going to be in there. Additionally, the Honors College puts their scholarships there, and the Global Arts and Sciences scholarships that are available are also located in SNAP. Beyond that, first, if you want to search for one of these scholarships, you would simply fill out the general application, and that's going to directly take your FAFSA information and your financial aid information into your application, so you don't need to fill that out manually. So once it does that, two things are going to happen. The first is that they're going to automatically match you with scholarship opportunities that fit your FAFSA and your financial aid profile. It's also going to take into account your major, your how you identify, all of those factors. And so any scholarship you might find in the database that fits your profile can be used to study abroad. This is for semester programs only. So any scholarship you receive that goes towards your UIC tuition in general, that will travel with you abroad, but only for semester. There will be some situations where a summer scholarship can, but for the most part, the semester ones is where you can use UIC Snap. However, if you are looking for the specific ones that our office sponsors or other colleges sponsor with us, you'll simply need to search study abroad under opportunities and you'll come across it. Or you can search the name of the specific scholarship you're looking for. And the way you find that name would be going to our website, our scholarship page. There's a lot of information. So I mentioned external scholarships. These are not going to be located in UIC Snap. These are going to be independently run by government organizations, both the US and abroad, as well as nonprofit organizations as well. The Fund for Education Abroad, I'm just going to pull out because they have a very early deadline. We do have UIC students receive this scholarship. However, because it's such an early deadline, it's sometimes the students aren't really sure where they want to go abroad quite yet. So because all of you are here and you maybe have not gone abroad yet, this is the perfect scholarship for you to apply to. The deadline, I believe, is January 7th for this year if you're considering summer or fall. Our deadline for the spring is usually in mid-March. So this year it's March 12th. So students sometimes have not even considered where they're going abroad when this scholarship closes. So look into the Fund for Education Abroad. They have specific diversity awards as well. So if you identify as an LGBTQ student, they have one for that. The Freeman Asia and the US Japan Bridge Scholarship, those are for students who are studying in Asia or specifically Japan for the US Japan Bridging Foundation. And we did have a student receive, two students receive the Freeman Asia for summer 2020, and they're deferring to summer 2021. So research and identify what applies to you.
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
With regards to the FEA one, so is that one where you apply to you do the main general application, and then do you have to apply for the specific scholarships that are broken down into that, or do you just apply to that main one?
You just apply to the main one, and then based on your profile, they will consider you for different scholarships as well. I believe there's an option where you check which ones you want them to consider you for, but they will still look at your profile for the other ones.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yep. So the Benjamin A. Gilman International Scholarship. So this is, so this is one of the more popular scholarships that USC students apply for because it is meant for students who receive the federal Pell Grant or are eligible for it. It doesn't necessarily mean that they need to receive it in the semester they went abroad. They just need to be eligible for it either the term before or the term they go abroad. It favors diversity in many forms. It's up to $8,000. This is including, there's two components of it. There is the there's the regular scholarship, and then there's the critical language scholarship. The regular scholarship is anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000. And the critical language adds on an additional $1,000 to $3,000. So critical language is if you're choosing to study abroad in a location and take language courses in a language that is less commonly spoken. So maybe Russian, Chinese, Korean, Portuguese, there's a large number. Then I highly encourage you to apply for the additional critical language scholarship. We will have specific, and I'll talk about those later, specific scholarship workshops focused just on the Gilman. It is a more involved essay process, but that doesn't mean it's not attainable. And we're here to support you in brainstorming, writing, and just the general application process. As I transition into the more intense applications, I wanted to share some essay writing tips. So as you're considering what you want to include in an essay, these might be some helpful tips here. They seem pretty straightforward, but they really make the difference. Both myself and Kyle have served on scholarship review committee boards for these national scholarships. And some students are really, really strong in the message they want to get across, but it's not as clear as they would have liked. And it does hinder the ability for someone to evaluate their application. So I would say first, engage in self-reflection before you begin writing. Think about your diversity, think about how you personally identify, think about your lived experiences and how those might translate into a study abroad experience and the goals that you want to pursue as a result of these lived experiences. Brainstorm. By the time it gets to the essay, you want to know exactly what you're writing. You don't want to just have a straight stream of consciousness in your essay. So make sure you brainstorm prior so that you get out all the different ideas and you can select which ones make the most sense and are the most salient identities or the most important identities to you to include, or goals to include in that essay. Be creative. The people that are reading these national scholarships, as well as the local ones at UIC, they're reading a lot of essays. And so when you have a creative or a unique story to share, that's going to make you stand out. And they're going to be more likely to give your essay a second look, to look deeper into who you are and why you want to study abroad and why you might need this scholarship. Proofread. I know that you've heard this probably your whole lives from all of your teachers. It's so important to proofread. Reading it out loud really helps. So just talking through it, you can catch some of those minor errors that your brain autocorrects when you read in your head. Asking a colleague or someone you work with or a friend or us as advisors, myself and Kyle, we're happy to proofread. Maybe an academic advisor or student support advisor that you are very close with. Ask them to proofread and give you feedback as well. The other thing is to not speak too generally or too vague, to use concrete examples. So when you're sharing why you want to study abroad, you want concrete examples as to why and what might have influenced you to get to that point. I think this is a great reason to study abroad, but you need something unique. So one example I give is I want to study abroad in Spain to immerse myself in the culture and language. Great reason to study abroad, but it doesn't translate as powerfully in a scholarship essay. So think about what particular components of the culture that interest you and why you want to immerse yourself in that culture. Is it the language? Think about what part of the language is going to be relevant to your future career or your future academic interests. Is it going to keep you on track to graduate on time? And that's a really important goal of yours to fulfill some of these Spanish language requirements abroad. Or do you want to use it in working as an occupational therapist or in a multinational business company. Talk about that, because that's going to bring it from a basic statement, a general statement, to a creative and unique one to you. So essay content and scholarship question focus. You will see the questions are going to ask a variety of personal opinions and personal statements from you, and they're going to be in these 4 categories. So the first is goals, academic, professional, and personal, financial need and assistance, service and the greater community, and diversity. So we will have more in-depth scholarship workshops that will go into each of these areas in greater detail, and it'll actually give you the opportunity to brainstorm and write out some of these responses to these areas with people to advisors to help support you in that exploration. However, one thing I do want to just go over is sort of what the typical questions are for these areas. So for goals, I'm just going to highlight a couple, is to connect your personal, professional, and academic goals to your study abroad program. So it needs to be directly related. The other is, how will this program help you gain the experience and perspectives you need to pursue future career goals? How might participating in this program complement or enhance your academic studies? So this might be, and this is also something to consider when you're selecting which program as well. So this might be, there's a particular course that isn't offered here on campus and that you want to have access to take that course. So I know I've had business students and CADA students both want to take fashion design courses abroad in Milan because they didn't offer that here at UIC, and they thought it would complement their overall degree. Some students want to study public health abroad, and they want some actual clinical observations to be able to talk about in their pre-nursing applications. So there's a variety of reasons, but just make sure you connect how this might relate to your academic or professional goals. And then the last one is to talk about your personal experiences. So sometimes they ask you, what are some personal challenges you have overcome, and how do they prepare you for study abroad, and what personally, or how personally, would you like to grow? Students come back and cite that it made them independent, it made them flexible, it made them resilient. So if that's something you're looking for to develop, maybe to discuss that in your the goals in your scholarship essay. Financial need and assistance. This is going to be specifically articulating what impact this scholarship would have on your education. So if you didn't receive it, how would that impact you? If you do, how would that impact you as well? This is an opportunity for you to share any personal family circumstances affecting your need for financial assistance. A lot of times the background narrative as to why we need financial assistance isn't included in our FAFSA. It's not included in our financial aid. So this is an opportunity for you to sort of share perhaps a hardship that has required you to rely on this scholarship in order to pursue study abroad. And the last is service and greater community. And so this is talking about what you want to bring back to the US as a result of this lived experience abroad and the study abroad. So it could be focusing on a particular social issue you feel passionate about, that you're going abroad to learn, and that you want to help support in your time after that. So for example, this would be maybe gender issues, public health, environmental concerns. There's a lot out there, and I'm sure we all know that, especially now, social justice, that we should pursue and support these type of social issues. So if that's something and you've chosen a program that aligns with those pursuits, you might want to discuss that in your scholarship essay if the question asks it. The last one is diversity and identity, and I'm really excited to present some of our upcoming workshops where you can actually do, we're going to have dialogues and identity reflections to think through what is unique and diverse about each one of us to highlight and showcase in our study abroad scholarship essays, but try to think through what's unique about you. And I give this example of a student who sat down and he said, I have nothing diverse about me. And I kudos to my colleague who really talked him through all thinking through this. And so he felt he had no previous experience to share why he was a diverse student going abroad. And in talking to him, he shared that he had immigrated to the US from Nigeria. So he had to go to a whole new school in high school. So he had that sense of resilience. He identified as African American. He was in the STEM field, which is a very underrepresented major abroad. So he was studying engineering, and he wanted to go to Germany to study the car industry to complement his academic studies. And he didn't think he wanted to include any of that. And I thought right there, that's a perfect essay. That is the student that deserves and should be supported through financial aid and scholarships. He also shared that he secretly had a dream of minoring in French and learning French culture and cuisine, but he was, juggling his engineering course load. And so we talked a little bit about how to pursue that simultaneous goal while still pursuing his engineering degree. So come to these workshops, we'll talk through these things, we'll figure out what might be the right program fit for you and how your diversity and identity will fit into pursuing those goals. Yep, so I'm going to turn it over to Kyle, who's going to talk about a few things beyond just scholarship funding, which is one great way, but there are many ways to fund your study abroad experience.
Thanks, Marley. So unfortunately, the reality is you likely won't find one single scholarship that's going to fund your entire study abroad experience. Maybe you will, and if you do, we'll have a celebration for you. But the reality is most students have to make use of kind of the three buckets that we've been talking about. So exploring financial aid, applying for as many scholarships as possible. And the last bucket is what I like to call community-based funding. And community-based funding is really all about leveraging your networks to support your pursuit of study abroad. As Marley's already talked about, the good news is study abroad is an exciting thing, and it's something that most people have probably heard about before, whether or not they've done it themselves, and understand many of the benefits that can come from this. So I think you'll find that as you share your goal to study abroad with some of your key people in your network, you'll find real excitement and support. So when you're thinking about community-based funding, you want to look to your family, your friends, your school or work peers, community organizations of which you're a member, such as your local church, clubs, sports groups, and other local organizations such as Rotary Club. And then the other key is that you find a way to professionally and succinctly articulate why you want to study abroad. And I think a lot of us, and as a student, this certainly was true for me, we knew we wanted to travel and see the world, but we didn't really understand the underlying reasons behind what was driving that interest. So I think, apart from all of the other great information we're sharing with you today, perhaps the best first step you could take is maybe this weekend is just take some time and really think about what's driving you and your pursuit to study abroad, and start to just free write and write down some of those thoughts. And that's what then you're going to be able to turn into some of these scholarship essays and use as you communicate with those in your network about potentially donating to your cause. Now, on our new website, we're going to have a new resource called our community-based funding guide. And this is going to highlight some past fundraising activities that have worked well for other students. Some of the things that you'll find in there will be a template letter that you can download and edit to make sense for you and your program. And then you have a really nice professionally written letter that's ready to send to your networks, letting people know what it is you're trying to do and how much your ask is to try and solicit some donations. Given that technology is big these days, crowdsource funding has become really big for students as well. So we'll likely have some tips as well about what goes into creating an effective crowdsource funding campaign. Now, I know we've all probably seen our friends, post things on Facebook saying donate to such and such cause, and that doesn't work. You can't just do a one-time pitch and hope people are going to donate to it. So what our guidelines are going to talk about is what goes into making an effective crowdsource campaign. You have to get creative, and I had a couple of students do some really innovative things, such as providing, if you donate $5, I'll send you an Eiffel Tower keychain while I'm abroad. Donate $10, I'll send you a postcard. Donate $15, I'll give you access to my blog I'm going to keep on abroad. So you got to get creative and think about how you can give back to those in your network who might support your cause. So look for our new community-based funding page on our new website, which again, we're hoping to roll out in the next couple of weeks. Okay, Marley, can you please advance to the next slide? Oh, I forgot, we did actually have a slide about crowdsource funding. So talked about most of this. Some other good pointers though are setting a realistic goal. You know, I saw one of my friends post a campaign the other day and she was asking for $20,000. And as a potential donor, you know, I click open that page, I see her goal and I'm like, well, shoot, I feel like, not to be pessimistic, that's really hard to obtain. How's she ever going to get there? And actually what we've seen from experts in this industry say is that setting smaller, more realistic goals will actually get people to consider donating to your campaign. So part of what we'll work with you on is looking at your financial aid package, looking at the scholarships you've applied to, and identifying what your true need is. In other words, what is that gap? You know, you have other resources that can help you pay for the majority of study abroad. So we're really only talking about a gap, and perhaps that's what you use to serve as the basis for your crowdsource funding campaign.
One thing I would add that's helpful for crowdsource campaigns is that being able to identify how much money will help support certain things. So if you call out, you know, for every $100, this is going to pay for my books and supplies while abroad. $200 is going to pay towards my luggage costs. $1,000 for my flight abroad. So sort of, and that is not the standard of flights. It depends on where you're going and when you buy and everything like that. But sort of showing that will help donors want to support you because they're understanding exactly where their money is going. It's not just an idea, it's a concrete concept then.
All right, and on this slide, we just thought it's always nice to hear from fellow students, and unfortunately today we don't have any with us who can talk about their funding experiences. So we selected a couple of quotes from some of our students who were successful in funding their programs. So I'll very quickly just review these. So first, we have a student, is it Nitsania? Marley, is that correct? Okay, perfect. Haven't met her yet, but anyways, she says, nothing was going to stop me. However, my biggest challenge was not being eligible to apply for certain scholarships due to not meeting the minimum GPA requirement. This resulted in me applying for everything I was eligible for, but also accepting some of the loans that were offered to me. It was worth every penny. So I think there's a couple of key facts in here that are really interesting to pull out. One is her note, apply for anything and everything you are eligible for. The good news is once you have a really solid scholarship essay for one scholarship, most of the prompts for these scholarships tend to be very similar, so it becomes very easy to tweak it and adjust it and submit it for other applications. The other thing I like about this quote is she does talk a little bit about considering loans. And while no one is saying you should rush out and take out loans to study abroad, I think that all of us have to engage in a personal discussion about investment here. And, you know, for me, as someone who knew I wanted to have an international lens to my career, I saw taking out a few loans to help cover that little gap I had on some of my programs was worthwhile in an investment. So just know that, again, Hua, Kao, and the Financial Aid Office can talk to you about these options as well. And it's certainly good to keep in mind as a backup option in case you don't get all the scholarships you applied to. Next, we have a quote from Zuriel, who's one of our study abroad addicts, if I can use that term. He's been abroad so many times. And he says, throughout the process, there was always the financial risk of not realizing the opportunity to go abroad. I was able to use and mobilize through my network to seek for financing opportunities to help cover costs of going abroad. There are numerous USC scholarships that can help one obtain these great opportunities. And so it sounds like from Zuriel's experience, he did find a lot of success in tapping into his networks to request support for studying abroad. So I know making that initial ask can seem nerve-wracking and you think no one's going to donate, why even bother? But you'd be very surprised. Most people understand the value behind an experience like this and would be excited to contribute even. All right, I'll turn it back to Marley because she's got some great future events coming up.
Yeah, so unfortunately, we weren't able to have students attend this workshop, but we really wanted to give students a space to open-endedly discuss what worked for them and what routes they took to fund their study abroad experience. So we're going to have an event on February 11th, Funding Your Study Abroad, the student perspective. So it'll be a panel of students sharing their experiences. And then next, there is the Gilman International Scholarship Overview session. So if you are eligible or will be eligible or have been eligible for the Pell Grant, I recommend coming to this session. It's going to be specific to the Gilman International Scholarship. As I mentioned, there are 3 parts to it, and it's pretty involved, but any of the information we share is going to be relevant and helpful to any scholarship that you would pursue in terms of study abroad. So we have 2 different days for that to try to align with different students' class schedules. And then we also have 2 study abroad scholarship writing workshops, incorporating identity and diversity into your application. So we have 2 different dates for those as well. And we will be partnering with the Office of the Vice Provost of Diversity with Michelle Mano, who has helped us with a number of workshops in the past. And she is excellent at helping you reflect and identify what your personal identities are and how those might connect to the study abroad location, place, or content that you're studying while abroad. And then lastly, I really want to point out that Kyle and I are here, and honestly, the rest of our staff, if it was a capacity issue, are here to help support you in one-on-one study abroad scholarship essay review. So the same way you can make an appointment as a consultation to talk with one of us about where and what you want to study abroad, you can make an appointment to discuss your scholarship essay. And it can be at any point in the writing process. So if you have just a piece of paper with all of your ideas on it, that's great. It'll be a different discussion. Or if you have a full draft that you want us to look at, you would just send that along to us ahead of time and we could go through it together. So that is the end of our presentation. Do you have any questions? You feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question to the group, or if you'd like to place in the chat, either way, we're here to help answer those. Or we did a really good job and covered everything, but I'm sure you have some questions.
While I let you guys reflect and think if you have any questions, I do just want to address kind of the elephant in the room. Of course, COVID-19 is still around, and unfortunately that has meant that we've had to suspend study abroad at present. So we unfortunately have canceled study abroad for the spring. However, we are cautiously optimistic that study abroad will be able to resume in a limited fashion at some point next year. So all that to say that our advisors are still available to you right now. If you want to begin talking about studying abroad in a future term, we absolutely can support that at this time.
Thanks, Kyle. I'm going to answer one of the questions in the chat. So how do we figure out which study abroad options are cheaper or more expensive? This is the age-old and probably the hardest question to answer in just a sentence. It really depends on which program you want to do and which program, where you want to go, and then also what your financial background is. So it's a mixture. And the nice thing is that you can meet one-on-one with an advisor to talk through what makes the most sense for you. It's easier to decide what scholarships you should apply for once you select your program, but in the selecting of your program process, we will look at different types of program funding models. Now, that graph that Kyle shared at the beginning of this presentation, some programs are less expensive than tuition here at UIC, but they don't offer a lot of external scholarships. The other option is some programs are maybe higher in cost than UIC tuition and fees, but they offer a lot more scholarships to support students who come from underrepresented backgrounds or have a high financial need. So it's hard to figure out which one's cheaper or more expensive because it's different for every student and it depends on the funding model of that given program. But no, the most important takeaway is that you do not have to navigate this alone. We are here to talk through that with you and identify what makes the most sense for your goals and your financial need.
And to build upon that, I'd say that a great place to start if you're just starting with your study abroad journey is to just get on our website and start playing with our advanced search tool to look at programs, because all of our programs should have the cost listed there. And while that's not the total cost of attendance in terms of the other things that aren't included, it'll certainly give you somewhere to start. The good news is for those of you who will be around for next academic year, so for 2021, 2022 and beyond, we're going to have a new system that will allow us to have budget sheets for each of our programs on the website. So you'll be able to see what the expected total cost of attendance is for programs. So again, that's something that's in progress, but which should be ready by next academic year. Kat, you have a great question about, can we talk about scholarship stacking, please? And there's not much to talk about. The answer is yes, you can stack scholarships. So you should, as we said, you should apply for as many scholarships to which you are eligible to apply for. You will need to report to financial aid, though, what scholarships you receive. So the one caveat I will share is that if you find yourself in a fortunate situation to have received tons of money, that could impact the typical aid you might receive from UICs, because a lot of your aid is determined by what your budget is for that semester. So the key is apply for anything and everything, and then link up with HUA and financial aid to understand how that might impact your overall financial aid at UIC.
I put the link to the program search in the chat. Right now, our current website is having some glitches, but this is a direct link. So go ahead, save it, bookmark it, and when you have some downtime between classes, take a look at where you'd like to go. Lily, you also asked, when should we pick a program? It's never too early to pick a program, because the more confident you are in what program you want to do, the sooner you can get started on your scholarship essays and maybe meet some of those early deadlines, such as the Gilman or the Fund for Education Abroad. We recommend that students wait to apply until the semester before they want to go abroad. It's just a little bit easier in getting your courses approved. However, if you are ready and you know exactly where you want to go, you're welcome to come to our office and apply now, but you're also welcome to come at any point throughout the year or throughout you considering different study abroad options to meet with an advisor for a consultation appointment, and those are unlimited. So you can come to a consultation appointment as many times as you want virtually, as well as we will do drop-ins in some capacity as well when the school year starts again.
And I guess as a general rule of thumb, although we encourage you to start the conversation as early as possible, I'd say at least planning 2 semesters out, it will ensure that you have ample time to look at resources, scholarships, and so forth.
I would say that's a good sweet spot, because if you plan too early, all the courses and information might not be available for you. And if you plan too late, it's not fun. I've been there myself. You have to sprint through everything. So I think that the 2 semester gap is the sweet spot. But either way, we'll get you through the process. So whenever you decide that you're ready to pursue study abroad, we're here to support.
All right, any other questions? So Isaac, you raise a really interesting question to my colleagues and myself. So in general, there are study abroad opportunities for students from any major. However, it is true that some majors are more well represented and have many more program offerings. And I know you call out computer science specifically. The good news is I actually just had a meeting with the new Associate Dean of Undergraduate Student Services last week in the College of Engineering, and she is a huge advocate for study abroad. So in particular for the College of Engineering and computer science students, I think in the next few years, you're going to see an influx of new programs out there. But already we, my team of advisors, they know their portfolios so well. So they could have a conversation with you and give you some programs to look at who offer courses that would benefit your major. So please don't get disheartened if you go on our website and you're not finding readily, programs for your major as easily as some others. Admittedly, we have so many programs, so it can be a little overwhelming, we understand. So if you're not finding programs specific to your major, come in, have a conversation, because we oftentimes know of programs that are a good fit. A long-term goal is that eventually we'll have major guides on our website for each major, and students then will be very easy for you to know which programs are a good fit. But right now, at least, we have our staff who are very knowledgeable and can help out. No problem.
And we're currently in discussion about a number of new partnerships to support computer science students as well. So check back with us as well to see if there's developments in that. If you're interested in learning how study abroad relates to your career and other sort of international opportunities here at UIC and beyond, we have another event for International Week on November 20th, this Friday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. We're partnering with Career Services. And then lastly, if you want updates on what's going on, please follow us. Oh my God, we reached 700 followers today, which is exciting. Make us 701 or 2 or 3. you can follow us on social media. So it'll be information about new programs, events such as this one, testimonials from our alumni, and just any sort of information about what's going on campus as it pertains to study abroad and international opportunities.
Well, thanks, Marley. And I want to say a thanks to each of you for joining. I know this academic year, this year in general, has been just very, very abnormal, and we all are sorely missing travel and getting you abroad. But I can say that I do believe study abroad will resume before too long, and you all will have these incredible opportunities available to you. So please don't let the current situation prevent you from keeping on. I want to applaud each of you for taking this first step and looking at study abroad, and we're excited to carry on the conversation from this point forward. All right. Well, if you need to reach us, I'm going to pop our general email address into the chat. Feel free to send us your questions. Otherwise, again, thank you so much for being with us today.